Hey there guys, Artistic Nick here, thanks for the click. In today's drawing tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to shade and blend without using any blending stumps or blending tools. Hey there guys, welcome to today's tutorial. I've had a few requests recently over on Instagram and Facebook. I think there's been a few comments as well on the YouTube channel, just exactly about how I shade and how I get the realism in some of my graphite work. Now what I would say to you is, it's super important that you guys learn to draw. I know that quite recently I've been doing an awful lot of coloured sort of comic work, cartoon work, anime and things like that. But going back to where it all started, I learned how to draw properly. And what I mean by that is I learned how light works, I learned about contrast and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through a sort of an 8 or 9 minute video, hopefully, so it's not too long, just outlining some of the key principles and ideas that I go through. That's definitely going to help you guys out, whether you're trying to draw cartoon work or you're trying to do realistic graphite work. So I thought I'd start off with my latest graphite work. This is a piece that I did about a week ago. It was in memory of my late mother, and it's one of the most realistic pieces that I've done. What I want you to understand here is, throughout all of my pencil work, I don't actually use anything to blend with. So I've got a selection of pencils here, and what I do is I start off with a very light pencil. So I'm starting off with a 4H pencil, a 2H pencil going into an HB, 2B, 4B and a 6B. Now for those of you that don't understand exactly how pencils work and what the different the numbers are for, the H value pencils are very light in sort of tone, going all the way to the darkest tones, which are in the Bs. And I'm using Caran D'ache pencils. For any of you that have watched any of my videos, you'll know that I always start off, whether it's a cartoon piece or not, with one of my pencils, and I do love the Caran D'ache pencils. One of the reasons I love them so much is you can actually see by the colour of the pencil itself the different tone or the different value that you're going to get with it. So this is my 6B and this is the darkest, all the way up to the 4H there. What I want to try and get across to you is the understanding of how I actually build the values up. I don't use anything to blend with. I don't use blending stumps. I don't use tissue paper. I know there's a lot of artists out there that do super realistic work and they do use blending stumps. I've got nothing against that, but I'm just going to give you the reasons why I don't use anything to blend with, and how I actually produce some of this work. So I'm just going to get one more piece of paper that I've sort of prepared with some ideas on it. So the first thing I want to get across to you is every piece of paper that you have has something called a tooth to it, and no piece of paper is completely flat. If you were to look at a cross section of a piece of paper, for argument's sake, we're going to have a look at this one and just say that this is sort of resembling the tooth of the paper. Now, if we go in with a very dark pencil to start with, what we find is we're brushing the top of the tooth of the paper and we're starting to get some of the graphite to lay on the top of these peaks of the mountains, if you want to call them that. But the problem that we've now got is we're still seeing some of the white in this area here coming through. And that's why sometimes you will see in some artwork, you get this kind of mottled or spotty look. So with the method that I'm going to show you, what we start with is we start with a very hard pencil. And we're going to start blending, and what happens is, because these particles of graphite are smaller with the harder pencils, you start to find that you start to get some of the graphite down into the recesses of the tooth of the paper. So our 4H pencil is going to be very light and we're just building a base up. What we're doing is conditioning the paper. We then move to our 2H pencil, and what this is going to do, this is going to bring out slightly more value and a slightly darker tone, but we're going to start filling up more of this tooth of the paper. Now this isn't an exact representation of how the tooth of the paper actually looks, but it's just giving you an understanding. We're obviously going to be getting a little bit on the top here as well. And then we're going to work through to our HB pencil, which again is a little bit darker still, until what we're now starting to do is we're now starting to saturate the tooth of the paper, so that when we do start to lay down our darker values, we aren't getting this sort of spotty polka dot mottled look to it. The other benefit of this, I can now start to remove some of this value, some of this graphite with a kneaded eraser just by dabbing. Now I'm going to start showing you why I never use anything to blend with. You'll see an awful lot of artists out there using something called a blending stump. When I first started drawing myself, I actually did use Q-tips or cotton buds. But if we want to look at this now and just have an understanding of how we've started to flatten the tooth of the paper. So this is my piece of paper, and I've put some value in. So I've used my 2H pencil and my 4H, maybe up to an HB. And now what I've done is I've used a blending stump, or I've used a Q-tip, or even a tissue paper. And what we start to do is we start to flatten the tooth of the paper out. Now I've not pressed too hard with this tool, this implement, but the issue that I've now got, if I want to remove some of the value, I'm going to remove the value on the top of the tooth of the paper, but I'm going to find it very, very difficult to get into the recesses, which means that I'm not going to be able to remove anywhere near as much value as I would like to do. And that's just going to give me a slightly different look. It's going to make it very difficult to highlight areas. The third piece of paper that I want to show you, this is if I've used a blending stump. So as you can see now, the tooth of the paper is completely flat, and it's almost impossible now to get any of this value that we've sort of ground into the tooth of the paper actually out of the tooth. So we have actually ruined the paper, and some people would call this burnishing. If you burnish the paper, you flatten the tooth out, which means you're very unlikely to be able to get any more graphite from the pencil onto the page, but you're definitely going to struggle to get any of this burnished in graphite or charcoal if you're using something like that. So they're the reasons that I don't actually use anything to blend with, because it's so important when we are making a graphite drawing. If we want to have something realistic looking, this is a piece that I did a while ago, and you can just see the different values that we've got going on here. So we've got darker tones in this edge of the corner here, and we've got highlighted areas here. Again, this drawing was done using that method that I've just gone through, starting in the darkest areas but with the lighter pencil, building the value up, going down into the lighter, going with the lighter values into the tooth of the paper, building the values up until we come into the darkest areas in an area like this, which again I've used a 6B pencil, but because I've already filled the tooth of the paper in these areas, what I'm starting to get is a very rich tone. This method does take a little bit longer, I'm not going to lie to you. It's much easier to go on with a piece of tissue paper or a Q-tip or even a blending stump. But what this technique does really teach you is it teaches you the subtleties between values and how to balance values. If you actually look at this white part of the bow here, this will have had value in it at some point, but because I haven't ground the tooth of the paper down and I've not embedded any of that graphite, it was very easy for me to start taking out with a kneaded eraser some of the value there. I've actually sprayed this drawing with a fixative, or else I would have showed you exactly what I mean by that. But when we're trying to draw any lightness in an area, so this hair area here, around the lips and the chin here, this kneaded eraser is vital. And if you've gone through the method that I've showed you there, just dabbing and making sure that you are only just lifting the graphite out means that you're going to be able to take it out of the tooth of the paper, and you're then going to be able to go over that and add more graphite and build the values up to the levels that you want them to. I hope that explained a few things to you. I've had a few people, like I say, asking me exactly how I do certain things. So that's basically the technique that I go through. Lots and lots of practice needed. I've done thousands and thousands of drawings over the last couple of years, and practice sessions where I'm drawing spheres and barrels and things like that. So I would say have a go at it, get your understanding of the pencils and how things work in terms of the tooth of the paper. The paper that I use is I always use a Bristol, a Strathmore Bristol, either a smooth or a vellum surface. The vellum is slightly toothier. The smooth, as in the name, means that it's slightly smoother. Some artists like the smooth, some artists like the vellum. I'm unsure as to what I would say is the best. This is done on the vellum, and my latest piece, the eye, this was done on the smooth. I hope this clears a few things up for you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'm having so much fun with it at the moment. If you've got any requests, it might be a tutorial, it might be a graphite drawing, then don't forget to send me them down in the links and the comments below. Don't forget to find me on all of the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. The links to all of those are down below in the descriptions. It'd be great to hear from you. Don't be shy, connect with me. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of the YouTube channel so far. And I'll hope to see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.